That's one, you alluded to this too, is the power and the memory shortage.
Hello, this is DrPaulCottrell, and I'm recording this on June 22nd. The markets have opened up, and the S&P 500 is at 7,512. There's a little bit of a rally in the S&P 500. VIX is at 16.75, so volatility is stable. The euro is trading at 114, so dollar is strengthening relative to the euro. Oil is trading at 74.20. That's WTI. SpaceX is trading at 174.05. And the Japanese yen is trading at 161.86. So the dollar is strengthening. So there's a little bit of movement in currencies. Equities are going up. Natural gas is trending down. It's trading at right now 3.264. So because of the news that came out yesterday that there is positive movement with the negotiations between Iran and the United States, and there seems to be a slight de-escalation potentially going on between Israel and Lebanon, that the energy markets are happy and things are starting to trade down a little bit. Now, be careful, things can change, but the trading range now that I suspect is probably going to be around 72 to 79 for WTI. Natural gas is a little high. It's trading at 3.26. It should be closer to 3 at this time of the year. So there's a higher probability of it trading down. Now, there has been a tendency during this epoch of tumultual activity with Trump, that there's an inverse relationship between oil and natural gas. Now, there's not a fundamental reason for that. It's just the behavior of the market, probably because people are doing some hedge strategies. But when oil seems to go down, at times natural gas wants to go up, and vice versa. So where oil is moving down, right now there is a little bit of a trend of moving natural gas down. But just be careful with that correlation. It can break and trade a bit more based on fundamentals, but there has been a tendency throughout this crisis to be inversely related. With that, Alan Greenspan passed away. He was 100 years old. He died from complications to Parkinson's. I didn't realize that he had Parkinson's. And for the ones that don't know, Alan Greenspan was the federal chair for the Federal Reserve for a very long time and a very influential person during the 80s and 90s and the very early 2000s. But he passed away at Clemson. With that, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the great supplements that I offer. You take these supplements and you're going to slow down the aging process. These are supplements that I take every day. Magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc will help with your brain function and help boost up your immune system. You should be taking magnesium and zinc every day. Vitamin C and magnesium. Vitamin C and magnesium will help with your skin, brain function, immune system. The vitamin C in here, when you drink it with filtered water and take the collagen, will cross-link and improve your dermal layer. You can stack these together, which I highly recommend, and that will give you extra magnesium to help with your brain function. Good Night Formula. Good Night Formula is a perfect supplement that you should be taking to get into 3 to 5 cycles of REM sleep and deep sleep. It has tryptophan, melatonin, GABA, and passion flower. When you get good sleep, you're detoxifying your central nervous system. consolidating memory, and you're well rested. Do this regularly, you're going to slow down the aging process and reduce your chances of dementia. And myotrol. Myotrol will help to build muscle. This will help with the gene expression to build muscle and maintain muscle. When you turn 40, your genes start to express differently. They start to methylate, and it's harder to build muscle. Do some resistance training. Take the myotrol. It will help you to build and maintain muscle. It will also help to improve the health of your mitochondria so you have more energy. Myotrol has polyphenols, flavonoids, and lignans to help with that gene expression. Please go to my store and get Myotrol. It's the-studio-reykjavik.com. Click the link, use discount 5 and get $5 off. And you take those supplements, you're getting better sleep, getting musculature, you're improving your immune system, your skin, and your brain function. It's a great way to get healthy. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Now, Starmer looks like he's going to be resigning, so let's play the clip.
We begin this morning with a Fox News alert, and it's a big one. Just moments ago, UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer resigning after mounting pressure from the Labour Party and the public.
That party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Monday morning. I'm actually Strohmeyer filling in for Carly Shimkus.
And I'm Todd Pyro. Let's bring in Fox News senior correspondent Benjamin Hall to react, give us the latest information. And Benjamin, look, we've been talking about Starmer resigning for months now. Then it seemed to go away, at least here in the States, for a couple of months. What happened in the last week that led Keir Starmer to officially resign?
Yes, I mean, look, everyone knew it was coming at some point. The question was when. And
Unemployment, people are fed up with the illegal immigration, and he's a clown. He's not very intelligent. People want him out. There's rallies and riots in the UK wanting change. He's not change. He's promoting illegal immigrants.
in the last week specifically is this other Labour candidate called Andy Burnham, who was the mayor of Manchester, finally won a seat in Parliament. He was effectively someone stood down to allow him to do that, and he is widely considered to be the next contender. But you're right, you look back over the last few months and you have had countless U-turns by Keir Starmer. You've had local elections in which the Labour Party were decimated by a lot of other parties, by Reform in particular. And of course, you had Peter Mandelson, who was the man that Keir Starmer picked to become ambassador to America. And it turned out he had close relationships with Jeffrey Epstein, hadn't disclosed them, and Keir Starmer knew that when he put him in place. So all of these different things had been building, but it was the appointment of Andy Burnham, who was widely expected to be the next Labour leader and then the next Prime Minister in the last week, that really made the move. But look, the next Prime Minister will be the 7th Prime Minister in 10 years here in the UK. It has been a decade of constant overhaul, and the party, the country, just can't seem to decide which way it wants to go.
And that was my question. I mean, this kickstarts, this process for the country to see, as you said, the 7th leader in a decade. That's a lot of turnover. That is an ever-revolving door. What does that mean historically for the country, and really, what does it mean, for the time being right now?
Well, yes, if you went back 20 years, much like the US, every prime minister was in place for 5 years and there was another election. And it was like that for decades and decades. Well, that has changed dramatically. What we expect to see now, and Keir Starmer said it in his resignation speech, is that a new contest will begin on July the 9th. And he will stay prime minister till then. Now, the Labour Party will pick the next Prime Minister because they're the party that was voted in. And there are a couple of other candidates who might run for it as well. There's West Streeting is the main one at the moment. But Andy Burnham has been talking to West Streeting, and it appears that they might be doing a deal with Andy Burnham's telling this other man, if you stand down, I'll give you one of the plum roles in my government. Now, that means that it would be considered an appointment, that the party won't have voted for the next Prime Minister, and that upsets many people. So either you have these candidates running against each other, which actually hurts the party because they all criticize each other for 2 months, or else you pick one person in this case, and many people criticize that as being a coronation. So either way, there's going to be criticism of just moving on to a new leader without the country itself having elected him.
Then a face familiar to the Fox audience, of course, is Nigel Farage. Was this move done with an eye toward eventually staving off a Nigel Farage prime ministership?
That's fine.
100%. In the local elections that took place in May, the Labour Party lost across the country to Nigel Farage's Reform Party. They are right now the biggest party in the UK, and they came from nowhere the last couple of years. Now, in the by-election that took place just a week or so ago, which Andy Burnham won, he did surprisingly well against reform. And so many people in the Labour Party are saying, well, wow, this might be the one person who could push back against Nigel Farage and his party. And that is why they have pushed against Keir Starmer. That's why they forced him to resign, because they think that this guy, Andy Burnham, might be the one person who could fight back against Nigel Farage. But still, you look at the figures right now, and the Reform Party, Nigel Farage, has a clear, if there was a general election, has a clear path to victory. So there are 2 more years till there has to, with 3 more years almost, till there has to be a general election in the UK. So whoever comes in next could just keep waiting, and stay in power that long. But that comes down to who wins this by-election, how they choose the next leader. Will they force that general election to be sooner? The sooner it is, the more chance Nigel Farage has of becoming the next or the second future Prime Minister.
Ben, do you foresee this changing the framework in how the rest of the world operates with this, or do you think this is just going to stick with the country?
Well, look, you look around other countries in Europe and they've seen quite a lot of flipping as well, prime ministers as well. There seems to be a change right now, particularly to middle-level countries who don't quite know where they stand. I will say when we look at the world, you have to see how Keir Starmer, his relationship with President Trump, because frankly, the most important thing that the UK does at the moment is shore up its special relationship with America. Now, Keir Starmer began with a really quite strong relationship with President Trump. They are on different sides of the political spectrum. You know, Keir Starmer, the Labour Party, had left. President Trump is a Republican, so they are on either side. But after the beginning, and Keir Starmer came to the White House, the Oval Office, he gave President Trump a formal invitation to the second state visit. It was the first time a president had been given that. The relationship was close. They seemed really close friends. And then that started to fall apart. And, you know, it really led up to the Iran conflict where Keir Starmer refused to help, would not allow any air bases to be used at first, was not giving UK military support to the US. And that is when it really broke. And President Trump really started talking quite strongly against Keir Starmer. And what was remarkable was that just yesterday, President Trump put out on Truth Social, Keir Starmer is going to resign, before anyone else knew. So whether or not Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, had let President Trump know in advance, and President Trump leaked that, it was a remarkable thing for President Trump to be the first world leader to say Keir Starmer is about to resign. But the big question is, what will the next Prime Minister, what relationship will he have with President Trump? And if it's Andy Burnham, well, he is going to move further to the left over here. The Labour Party like him because he's going to be far more liberal. In fact, the bond markets, by the way, are jumping when he was voted as the by-election. So it's tough to see how he's going to have a closer relationship with President Trump than Keir Starmer did. And that isn't going to be great for the UK because it's our relationship with the US that gives the UK so much strength, so much support.
And we're going to get more into the US-UK relationship now that Keir Starmer has resigned with Steve Yates coming up in a few minutes. Benjamin Hall, great insight, great reporting.
What's going to be interesting about the bond? What's going to be interesting about the bond market with Andy? Right, so Starmer is stepping down. Andy is going to be running during the general election. It's their way of trying to prevent Farage from getting into office. Now, if the bond market goes up, the yields, I should say, the yields of the bond market go up, then what's going to happen is that the carry trade between Japan and England is going to go full steam. Carry trades are basically you're borrowing money from a lower interest rate environment and putting it into a higher interest rate environment. So you're borrowing in Japan, taking that money and moving it to England, converting it, purchasing bonds that have high interest rate. So let's say their bonds are trading at 5.5%. So you buy the 5.5% bond, you're getting interest on that bond. You're getting a coupon payment. And you are, let's say, paying 1% for the loan in Japan. So you're making 4.5, assuming that there's no wild swings in currency. There's wild swings in the currency market, depending on which way it goes, you can make more money or lose that differential. So it's a risky trade, but I suspect people are going to be playing this. So there are going to be bond vigilantes out there trying to hurt the bond market by selling bonds. The interest rates will go up, and then they come in and do a carry trade, and there's going to be a lot of finagling that England may need to do. Now, what happens if the currency drops? If someone's in that carry trade and the currency in England drop, then you would be losing money when you are unraveling the carry trade. So pay attention to the bond market. I think there's going to be some action in the bond market with England, and also the currency market. And that might be the reason we're seeing a little bit of strengthening of the dollar here. This issue here. All right. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the probiotics. You can get it in powder form or veggie cap form. By taking good probiotic, you're going to be able to absorb your nutrients better. You're going to improve your gut biome. You're going to improve your skin, brain function, metabolism, your immune system. Good health starts at the gut. So please go to my store, get the powdered version or the veggie cap version of the probiotics, and take it every day. And vitamin D3. Vitamin D3 is a supplement that does a lot of things for your body. First of all, it helps cardiovascular. Vitamin D3 also helps your immune system. Vitamin D3 helps with bone density. You do resistance training, taking in calcium. And vitamin D3 is really important during the cold season because it allows you to get rid of cells that are infected. It gets cells to go into apoptosis. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin D3. And if you take higher doses of vitamin D3 with a certain type of protocol, you're going to be able to actually improve and remodel your bones at the joint level and reduce osteoarthritis. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the vitamin D3. And the structural nanosilver lozenges, I have them in orange splash, fortified with vitamin C, and Manuka honey. They're perfect for the allergy season, the cold season, even when you're cleaning around the house, or in the yard, or working in the garden, or in the basement, or in the garage. Please go to my store, get the structural nanosilver lozenges, take them right away. It'll help to mitigate any soreness of your throat. It will create the secretions to protect your oral pharynx and neutralize because it has structural nanosilver. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com.
The driver for yield's no longer oil and what's happening in Iran and us evaluating the new direction of this FOMC.
In a lot of ways now it's going to be back to fundamental growth stories. Like this is actually a positive in some ways. Like we're going to get a more credible Fed who's going to be more focused on inflation, which will help with the affordability crisis and maybe in the long run actually bring yields lower. But right now we're going through kind of a transition phase where the market's going to be sniffing out just how many hikes we think are coming. And you know, we've had a number of sell side guys come out over the weekend and say 3 hikes, which maybe makes sense. Given where growth is going. Again, we know where inflation is, we know that's the problem, but if we get a stronger growth pulse, not just from this AI CapEx wave, but also from maybe a consumer now that's stabilizing because there's less uncertainty and less shock in their life, then we have actually a good reason to raise rates. And it doesn't mean that risk appetite has to get killed.
I mean, the market is kind of doing it for them, right? If you look at the 2-year yield, it's pretty fascinating. From the end of February until now, it's just a massive gain. We were at 330, 340 at the end of February, and now we're up at 420 on the 2-year yield. That's a big rise.
Yeah, this is financial want this much communication. Well, he was quite loud without saying much. And that statement being as short as it was, it's probably one of the more hawkish statements we've seen in a long time. And that makes sense. We're in a new era. He's stressing new things. We know he needs to build consensus, and we know he needs to.
Is it really hawkish, dude, to kick the can down the road with a committee for literally everything, giving yourself an out to make no decision until you can cherry pick an inflation stat that meets your expectations?
God bless Alan Greenspan, what he did for the world in a lot of ways and for central banking. But that's what we're going to find out. Does Warsh want to be a single man leading, or does he still want a consensus like we saw with Bernanke, Yellen, and obviously Powell? And that's the big question markets are asking, because if it's just him leading the way, then I think we know kind of this will be a more hawkish stance, despite a lot of the dovish worries with him being Trump's pick.
I do wonder, though, if you have a Fed chair, Warsh, who doesn't want to communicate as much, who talks less. I mean, we're getting Fed speak today still. Is that what just replaces it? And the market then looks to, you know, Cathcart and Williams and whoever else is speaking that day to try to divine where Fed policy is going. To what difference does it make then that Warsh isn't speaking as much? Isn't it just other Fed speakers who will basically do the talking?
And again, look, we're 1 week out here. It was kind of a tectonic shift in a lot of ways, and we're all still absorbing. I think you're right. I think what happens is we just listen to a lot of these other guys less, because in the end, we get the general gist that the leadership wants a tighter policy and a more kind of hawkish message into the year end, where we now have inflation and growth it's more appropriate. It's just the way it is.
And in terms of financial conditions, do they continue to tighten, or will they roll over here?
Well, we'll see. I mean, the dollar is still sort of in this range because of the Iran-US situation that hasn't really come off as much, and we obviously see equities near highs, we see credit spreads near lows. So those are kind of countering the tightening we're seeing from the Treasury curve and from the front end, tight end going higher, from yields higher up there. So to answer your question, Matt, they're kind of balancing each other right now. If we saw a break in risk sentiment, we saw equities and credit all of a sudden coming off, then you're going to have a situation where they may not need to actually tighten because the market's doing it for them. To answer your question.
Cool. Michael, thank you very much. You can check out Michael's work on the MLive function on your Bloomberg Terminal, MLIV, and the work of his colleagues. Coming up in the next hour, Morgan Stanley's Sarah Wolf joins us on the economic outlook. With the Strait of Hormuz nearly reopened, former Fed Governor Randy Kroszner on Alan Greenspan's legacy, plus the CEO of Alamos Gold. This is Bloomberg Open Interest.
Welcome back. This morning, Taiwan is set to hold 5 days of combat readiness drills, shifting its military training strategy to reflect exercises simulating war. Taiwan already basing some drills on a scenario in which China suddenly turns one of its regular military exercises into an actual attack. China's Navy recently increasing pressure around the island, routinely operating in controversial areas surrounding Taiwan to pressure Taiwan into accepting Chinese sovereignty. Joining me now is Gatestone Institute Senior Fellow Gordon Chang. Gordon, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. It looks like Taiwan is preparing for something. What's your take?
Well, good morning, Maria. Yes, Taiwan is prepared for war. We see these 5-day drills with tanks in the streets around the country's main airport. But also they need civil defense training of the population. And they need to consider something which is now inconceivable in Taiwan, and that is arming citizens. Because the one thing the Chinese military is not prepared for is guerrilla warfare, and that can be deadly, as we found out in places like Fallujah. So yes, Taiwan is moving in the right direction, but they need to move faster because China's drills are becoming bigger and bigger.
Yeah, but do you think that China is looking for guerrilla warfare, or will they just go in quietly the way they went into Hong Kong and just start throwing freedom fighters in jail, the way they did to Jimmy Lai in Hong Kong?
Well, they'd like to do that, but the Taiwanese population self-identifies as Taiwanese, not as Chinese. And we see this from surveys year after year after year. And there's a growing sense of Taiwan identity. And China's pressure tactics are sometimes and often counterproductive. So Beijing has lost the key card when it's really thinking about influencing Taiwan's population. Yes, it's got a bigger military. And yes, these exercises around Taiwan are becoming really dangerous. And the other thing, Maria, about this is that China is now saying that international water around Taiwan is China's coastal water. In other words, sovereign Chinese water. And that affects us because if we've had any consistent foreign policy over the course of 250 years, it's been the defense of international water and airspace. So this is now starting to affect us and everybody else as well, not just Taiwan.
Let's switch gears and talk about what Tulsi Gabbard released, because the outgoing director of national intelligence released a new wave of files which detailed Dr. Anthony Fauci's role in the COVID pandemic. Tulsi Gabbard releasing damning declassified evidence accusing Fauci of causing the...
We know what happened. And unfortunately, I can't play the damn thing because I get a strike on YouTube. You know, it's amazing I still have a channel after what I went through. But the bottom line is that what Tulsi Gabbard released proves everything that I have said for the duration of covering COVID. Right? From 2020 all the way to 2024, 2025. Everything I said is proven in those documents. Everything. All right. In addition, you got to pay attention. Let's stop. See, there's a lot of people out there. They're still milking the COVID cow with the podcast. All right. The reality of the situation is this. You don't focus on the last war. You focus on the next war. What I'm noticing with podcasters that are talking about the crisis that we went through in 2020, it's like old veterans of World War II or Vietnam talking about the way the war was. And they're sitting in their rocking chair and just keep on talking about war stories. That's not going to move society forward. Moving society forward is thinking about what's going to happen in the near term and down the road. And learn from the past. It's important to learn from the past, but stop milking the cow, right? Pay attention, because I'm the most accurate on this subject matter than anybody. Nobody on the planet is more accurate than I am in terms of this crisis of 2020. I know how it was made. I know who made it. I know how much it cost. What's in the freezer, what hasn't been released. And I also understand what the pathologies are. What you need to do is pay attention to me, because I'm doing these videos for free. And I'm telling you what to do. A lot of people are going to get cancers. A lot. Now, what's going to happen is as time goes on, those cancers are going to, the prevalence of cancers are going up. And then over time, it's going to start to go down. So there's going to be a pulse. But it's not going to be a bell shape. It's going to be more skewed, where the bulk of the prevalence of the cancers are within the 5 to 10 year mark of the crisis. And as we move away from the crisis, they'll start to dissipate. So there's going to be this 10 years going from 2020 to 2030, where the prevalence of cancers are going to be way higher. Now you're still going to have higher cancer rates in the 2030s, but the prevalence relative to baseline prevalence pre-crisis, 2020 crisis, it will be a little bit elevated, but it will start to dissipate. So you're going to have this wave, and then it starts a long tail. So this is going to be biased to the right. Now, when this happens, people are going to, start going, well, what's happening here? Everyone's starting to notice that there are rare cancers that are happening. This is foregone conclusion. There's no doubt that there is a pulse of new cancers because of the crisis that we went through. And it's because of the inoculations and the pathogen. It's both. So if a patient had one or the other, or there's synergistic effects of having them both. But people are just saying, oh, it's only the inoculate. Wrong. Just accept the fact it's both. The question is how much synergy when you have them together in causing the pathology. Now, cancer prevalence are going to go up. They are going up right now, but after the 10-year mark or 15-year mark, you're going to start seeing a downtick in number of new cases of cancer. So there's going to be this cancer pulse that lasts for about 10 years. But you'll still have in the 20-year mark from 2020, so we're talking 2040, still cases slightly above the normal incident rate pre-2020. Okay? What you're also going to have is a pulse of dementia. Very similar to the pulse that you have with cancer. But the cancer showed up first. And then you're going to start seeing people within the population starting to have early onset of dementia. And that's going to last in, and that pulse and the actual incidences are going to actually be higher than the actual cancer. Dementia is going to be worse as a pulse going through society than the cancer. This is the reason why I keep on talking about what you need to do. Now, if you pay attention to me, you'll be fine. If you don't, good luck. But there is no one on the planet, nobody on the planet that's more accurate and it's telling you what's going to happen with these pulses. Cancer pulse and a dementia pulse. And the dementia pulse takes a little bit longer to happen, but lasts longer in the patient. And the cancers are happening a little quicker, closer to the event of 2020. And will have a high incident rate per year and a higher prevalence over a 15-year period. So pay attention. All right. But nothing's going to happen to Fauci. Why? Because they're protecting a program that's been decades in the making. Laboratory gain of function research, biological surveillance, and biological development for weaponry, for creating therapies just in case an adversary develops them. I've done a whole series on biologics in foreign policy. Listen to it. It's happened. And it happened way before. This type of development happened way before 2020, even way before 2001. But if we want to zero in on the SARS platform, that was developed in 2001. People need to pay attention here. Now, it wasn't as infective, the infectivity of it at the early stages weren't as large as it needed to be as a weapon system. Why? Because it didn't have the fear and cleavage. But once the fear and cleavage did happen, which started in 2008, off to the races with a new modified version of the SARS platform. But people need to pay attention. I'm the most accurate person on the planet on this subject matter. So in conclusion, with this little subject, there's a pulse of cancer that's going to start to die down in about 15 years. And there's a pulse of dementia that's just starting that will last longer within the population. Enough of that. All right, let's listen to Piers Morgan on Starmer.
I only pay $10 a month for the internet. Here's how. Have you heard about Ryoko Pro? This is the cutting-edge portable Wi-Fi hotspot that people wish they found out about sooner.
The question my party is asking now is whether I am best placed to lead us into the next general election. I have heard the answer of my parliamentary party to that question, and I accept that answer with good grace. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party.
Thank goodness he was terrible. Right now, growing questions about the future of the United Kingdom as Prime Minister Starmer officially steps down as the sixth leader to hold the post in 10 years. Our next guest calls it a sad end to a dismal tenure. UK native Piers Morgan joins us now from France. I don't know why he's not in America with the World Cup, but more on that later. Were you surprised to see the Prime Minister resign when he did?
Well, just to be clear, when we get to the World Cup, I'll be in New York when we knock you guys out. So we'll come to that in a moment. Look, I think in relation to Keir Starmer, unfortunately, he managed to take an enormous majority, and then it turned out he had no plan. He was the man with no plan. And the first few things that he did were appalling. He attacked the pensioners, he attacked the farmers, he attacked pretty much every constituent in the country with new taxes and so on. He lost control of immigration, having vowed to smash the boats, smash the gangs and so on. He lost control of everything. This was a guy with no big ideas, no concept of how to galvanize Britain and restore us to greatness. And he turned out to be, and this is not a rude word, so I can say it, but he turned out to be an absolute clinker. And a clinker is something you never want to be in life. It's the kind of thing, Brian, you struggle to avoid being called, I think, most of your adult life.
Right. So you're saying that I'm not, but I don't think struggle to it. I don't think anyone's ever referred to me as that. Klingon, perhaps. We'll see. So here's a little study. Are the British adults, are they satisfied with Starmer's performance? 16% said yes. Why? A lot has to do with immigration. People arriving by small boat in the year 2026, 39,000. We watch what's happening in the streets. I watched the counter protest of Brits who want Britain to be Britain again. So we're seeing a lot of what we went through 10 years ago, or actually 2 years ago before Trump took over. People saying, hey, can we have our country back? We just seem to be ahead of you. France also has a problem with immigration, correct?
Yeah, it does. It's a problem all over Europe. There's no doubt that successive prime ministers, and most of them have been conservative, by the way, so this is not a left-right thing. They've all been completely useless in the way they have managed migration, both illegal and legal. And until we get a prime minister that can get a grip of that, I think the tensions are going to increase. Plus, our economy is underperforming. The pressure on public services, a lot of that, because of the increased number of people coming into the country, that has been collapsing. So there's a general sense that Britain has been floundering now for nearly a decade or more. And we are desperate for someone somewhere to come through and restore us.
So I want to get to the World Cup, but Andy Burnham is probably the likely guy to take over. And they say that one of the reasons is he's the one who could hold up Nigel Farage and his rising party. And do you believe that Nigel Farage would do better running this country than Andy Burnham?
I don't really know. I think Nigel Farage's Reform Party are a bit smoke and mirrors, and they had a very bad defeat at the hands of Andy Burnham in the by-election a few days ago. Andy Burnham absolutely hammered the Reform candidate. And it may be that Nigel Farage has reached a tipping point and can't go much further with this party. Andy Burnham is pretty much a socialist, but I think he's going to move, as they all do, very quickly to the centre. I think it's too late for Labour. I think they're a dead duck. But we'll see. But the idea of 7 prime ministers in 10 years is ridiculous and embarrassing.
Absolutely. Let's talk about World Cup. What does the England have to do against Ghana to get through to the field of 32, where the U.S. is going to be waiting?
All right, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the lignans. This will help with your immune system and endocrine system, bring down inflammation, and soak up free radicals. Ashwagandha root will help to control your cortisol levels and your blood glucose levels. By doing that, you're improving your immune system and your cardiovascular system. Stack these together. You can stack it also with turmeric. And this will help to slow down the aging process, boost up that immune system, boost up that endocrine system, keep inflammation down, keep those neurons healthy in your brain. It'll also help with cardiovascular health. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the lignans, ashwagandha root, and the turmeric. Omega-3 helps to bring down inflammation, helps to bring down LDL levels and increase your HDL levels, so your lipid profile is better. You have less probability. You're reducing the probability of producing additional plaque on your intima, your vascular system, right? So your cardiovascular health is going to improve. That's really important, because when you have better cardiovascular health, you have better blood perfusion. When you have better blood perfusion, you're giving those nutrients to your neurons. So the microenvironment around those neurons will be healthy. Super important. And omega-3 reduces the stickiness of your red blood cells. Super important. So please go to my store, get the omega-3. Make sure you take it every day. Cardiovascular health is super important. Now, that dementia that I was talking about earlier, there's going to be 3 reasons why that are related to the crisis of 2020. The first type, which is the most prevalent, will be due to microbleeding or microclotting. And what will happen is that you'll have brain death. The second reason, which is less prevalent, the first reason was around 75%. Around 24.9%, roughly, is going to be due to higher inflammation that leads to a buildup of plaque. And the last reason, which is very rare, less than 0.1%, prion disease. You have chronic inflammation at the neuron level. You're increasing the chances of having prions, a buildup of proteins that can't be broken apart through proteases. And you're going to have this build up of plaque. You want to keep that inflammation down. And when you keep the inflammation down, you're also improving the vascular system within your head. When it's inflamed, it gets leaky. And when there's inflammation, there also increases the probability of having microclots. You better pay attention. Vitamin B complex. Vitamin B complex will help with your energy levels. The first 4 B vitamins increases your ATP because they're involved in the electron transport chain within the mitochondria. Vitamin B complex will rev your cellular metabolism, rev it up. That's really important. When you get older, your cellular metabolism goes down. You want to reverse everything that's related to aging. And vitamin B complex also helps to protect your neurons, especially B12. Please go to my store, get the vitamin B complex. So it's really important. There's a reason why I keep on mentioning boost up that immune system and keep that inflammation down. And it's related to the pulse that happened from 2020. Once again, there's not a doctor on the planet that is more informed, more knowledgeable about the subject matter than me. Nobody. Not a podcaster, not a board certified physician, not a scientist that's working in a laboratory. They know some specifics, but they don't see the big picture here. They've all failed. I'm the only one that saw it. All right, let's listen into Al Jazeera. I think they're talking about.
That may be another sticking point. Israel has signaled for now that they do not have that intention.
Iran will most probably request this, but also how much Iran will put pressure on this issue will depend also on the other parts of negotiation of the memorandum of understanding regarding the nuclear issue, regarding the ballistic missile for Iran, the pros and cons. So this will depend how much these issues are connected. But again, I think the key aspect in any kind of Israeli withdrawal will be the pressure imposed by the United States on the Israeli occupation forces in South Lebanon. Israel is able to continue its wars with the support of the US. When the US says stop, basically, it's an end to this conflict. And we witness this situation in the case of Iran. Israel had to stop its attacks on Iran following US demands. Similarly, when it came to lately threats of Israeli occupation forces against Dahi, Beirut's southern suburbs, the US put a halt to it. So this will be a point of contention regarding Iranian own political interest, the ability to go forward with these forms of requests, and if the US is able to pressure enough, but this will also depend on US own geopolitical interest, and therefore it might not see, in the near future, the necessity to pressure Israel, maintaining a current of pressure on Iran by maintaining Israeli occupation forces in southern Lebanon.
All right, I'm going to listen. We're going to go to France 24, and they're talking about J.D. Vance here, not in a positive light.
Why are you still using bots for your meetings? How else am I going to remember what happened? Just use granola. Okay, what's granola? With granola, you get. Let's cross down to Professor Scott Lucas, who's a specialist in American and international politics at University College Dublin. Thank you so much for your time. Interesting announcement there in terms of the Iranians agreeing that they will allow inspectors to come into Iran to investigate and inspect their nuclear facilities. That indeed is a bit of a breakthrough, is it not?
I think that this, again, for the ones that don't know, they're just tuning in, they don't understand where my perspective is. I want Trump to succeed. I believe that destroying the IRGC and the theocratic regime is the best for the world, not just for the United States. And the United States needs to have the nuclear material in our possession. We go there and get it out of the country, not some sort of third party or down blending or anything like that. Second, by having the UN coming in or some sort of tangential organization from the UN coming in and being observers, only creates the potentiality hostages if we need to go back into war operations. It's stupid to put peacekeepers or the UN advisors or gatekeepers into Iran when we may need to use military operations. Don't you think that the Iranians will use them as hostages? And think about the fiasco that will create for Trump. Stupid. This is such a stupid idea. Trump looks weak with this agreement. Now, the oil markets and for the economy, at least short term, it's beneficial on what he's doing. But long term, does it really fix the problem? I'm not so sure. I have a feeling that you can't trust the Iranians. Now, people would say, well, DrPaulCottrell, Israel is a bad guy too. Well, the thing is, Israel needs to do their war with Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran on their own, not with American taxpayer dollars. They need to buy their weapons. They can buy the weapons from us, but you know what? They need to do it on their own. We should not be subsidizing. But I feel that the United States under Trump has failed in the operations to make sure that the theocratic regime and the IRGC are destroyed. And that we, meaning the United States, have the nuclear material in our possession, not Iran, not the UN, not some third party, not downblending, no. And Trump could have been very, very, very specific. He could have said, give us the nuclear weapons, or in 72 hours, gravity bombs are going to level Tehran in 2 days. So you have 72 hours to give us the nuclear material, or we're going to level Tehran, and it'll take 2 days to level it, and we're going to take over the Strait and Kark Island and take your oil and gas facilities. And we are going to control it. Now, pick which option you want. You want path 1 or path 2? You have 72 hours to make your decision. That's the kind of president we should have had. But what happened was that Trump was all talk, no action. He was afraid of the casualties, and he was afraid to put boots on the ground. Meanwhile, we're kicking the can down the road, and Iran, trust me, in the future is going to be a major problem for the United States. If they're funding Hezbollah and Hamas for Israel, don't you think that they'll somehow create some funding mechanism with all the illegals that came over into the United States and create these cells to actually create terror in the United States? Very similar to the 80s and the 90s in Europe. You remember all the cafe bombings that were taking place and the bus bombings? Wake up. You can't trust these people. The only thing that the IRGC understands and the Shiites understand is death. Kill them all.
Not in the wider perspective. Sorry that I'm smiling here, but let's take everything that J.E. Vance said. First of all, International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors were in Iran before February 28th, 2026, when the U.S. and Israel launched the war on Iran. Now, their activities had been limited since 2018 by the Iranians, but that was because Donald Trump ripped up the 2015 nuclear agreement and imposed comprehensive sanctions. But the IAEA has still been inspecting inside Iran. You can read their quarterly report.
The JOCP didn't have a provision to prevent Iran from going nuclear or procuring or making nuclear weapons. There was a period of time where it would kind of allow them to do it. See, this is what you don't understand. People need to understand with war. Unconditional war is the only way to win. Anything beyond unconditional surrender in a war situation is only going to have another war later down the road. Now, maybe it's 100 years later, maybe it's 30 years later, maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 24 months later. But unconditional surrender is the only way you win a war. Now, this is the exact reason why the Civil War was so successful in the United States under General Grant. He was willing to do absolute war against the Confederacy. Starve them, kill them, choke them. And then, when they capitulated unconditionally, he gave them grace. That's what you do. Trump is a fucking retard.
Which quite often are, come out through the media. So we're just going back to what happened before the war. Secondly, similarly with the Strait of Hormuz, the Strait of Hormuz was free to everyone before February 28, 2026. Now what you have is a situation which is that it'll be reopened to shipping, is what Vance is saying, but it's going to be under Iranian oversight. The Iranians want to do this in conjunction with Oman. So in fact, Iran continues to have leverage over the strait and is in a better position than it was before the war. And then thirdly, this deconfliction mechanism, which both sides have announced, the Iranians also announced this over Lebanon. Of course, the question here is how's that going to operate when Israel's trying to establish a zone of occupation in southern Lebanon?
There's no way. There's no way Israel is going to stop it. But the thing is that when it comes to countries, and you have this concept of deserve the land or it's your right or whatever, there's no such thing as the right to the land or you deserve it. If you can control it militarily, if you can control it economically, it's yours. That's the law of the jungle. Too bad if the UN likes it or not. Israel, if they can hold the land, it's theirs. But the same thing's true. If the Palestinians can hold the land, it's theirs. So this whole idea of who deserves it doesn't matter. The United States, we quote, deserve the land that we have because we're willing to protect it and fight for it. That's the only thing that matters. Not some international bullshit. So if Israel feels that it needs to continue on its war operations, they should. But there's a caveat. The United States taxpayers should not be paying for it. Israel should feel the full burden militarily and economically. See, when the United States subsidized Israel, they're not feeling the full burden of the inflation of a war effort. And the citizens of Israel, if it is an existential threat to their existence, they should all be serving the military to whatever capacity they can serve. This idea of not serving for the military in an existential threat is actually against Torah law. But you have a lot of people trying to find ways not to do it. Well, is it an existential threat or not? According to Netanyahu, it is. Therefore, the people should be serving the military. But yet, the people aren't willing to serve in the military. Why are American taxpayer dollars subsidizing this horse shit? We shouldn't. Israel needs to be on their own. You want to fight? Fine, fight. But you got to pay for it. You need the weapons? Buy it. Don't ask for a subsidy. And that also includes no subsidy to the Palestinians by the United States. Let them figure it out. And if whoever wins, wins. If Israel loses, so be it. If Palestine loses, so be it. That's the way all nations in the world have constituted.
Carrying out ongoing military operations. They just announced today that they will continue to occupy the historic and strategic Beaufort Castle. So how do you prevent Hezbollah and Israel getting into a scrap and the Israelis continue to be in part of the country? And that part is vague, even though it's being held up by both sides as, okay, there is this good progress in the talks.
So with what you just said there, Professor Lucas, what indeed has been achieved so far in these negotiations?
Well, the Iranians have got the upper hand here. I mean, there's a Southern phrase back that we use, and forgive me for repeating.
This professor has never said anything positive about Trump, so you always have to worry about people like that. Always. All right. Now, Trump's failing on this, for sure. He should kill the Iranian regime, destroy it, level Tehran, take the nuclear material, take Karg Island. You know, we got these Marines in the airborne. They can take the Strait of Hormuz. He's afraid to do it. That's the problem. And when you have a leader that's afraid to do something, you come into problems. But Lucas doesn't have anything to say positive about Trump.
On this, but J.D. Vance has put lipstick on the pig. What happened here is that weeks ago, Donald Trump and his officials accepted the Iranian agenda for these talks. And that is still the agenda that we're working off of here. So first of all, as I just mentioned, the Iranians made the priority the Strait of Hormuz because they have the leverage there. Now, in return for opening it back up to shipping, you heard J.D. Vance refer to and try to get out of this fact that the Iranians are going to get billions of dollars of their assets unfrozen, cloaking it in the idea of, oh, this is for humanitarian needs. We'll see how that pans out. The Iranians have a different version there. But remember, the Iranians are also getting a lifting of American sanctions on their oil and petrochemical products. They just said that overnight. And the Iranians have this private investment or reconstruction fund, whatever you call it, which has the prospects of hundreds of billions of dollars. So that's all in play for them going back to the status quo before the war. And then secondly, I think it's significant that on the nuclear issue, that beyond what Vance has said about the inspectors, which is just a small reiteration by Iran of the pre-war position, the Iranians have gotten the detailed discussions on the nuclear program pushed back to a later stage in the discussions. And the Iranians, I think, have got now American acceptance that they will be able to keep enriched uranium inside the country, albeit diluted to a lower level than what they have right now.
So it does appear the Americans are certainly not negotiating from a position of strength, keeping in mind that the Iranian leadership, authoritarian leadership, still remains in place, albeit with new leaders. And now that they have the leverage where they can open and close the Strait of Hormuz as they so desire.
You summarize this better than I did. You know, the fact here is that the Israelis wanted to get regime change. They didn't get it despite the killing of the supreme leader and dozens of officials and commanders. The Americans shifted from regime change to regime surrender, trying to bond their way to get the Iranians to capitulate on a number of conditions. That failed. Once the Americans or the Trump administration rejected putting in ground troops, which they would have had to do.
This is where Trump went wrong.
They only had one other option, which is to come back to the table. And when they came back to the table, they had miscalculated. They miscalculated in two respects. One, they miscalculated Iran's retaliation in Gulf states, which meant that most Gulf states, especially the Saudis, swung towards a negotiated settlement if the Americans wouldn't put in ground troops. And they miscalculated, as you mentioned, that over the Strait of Hormuz because of the effect on the global economy.
Professor Lucas, I'm afraid we're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
I agree with him in the sense that Trump failed and that J.D. Vance is putting a lipstick on a pig. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the resveratrol. Resveratrol will soak up free radicals, help with youthful gene expression, and help the health of your mitochondria. Get rid of senescent cells. And by doing this, you're going to have more energy, healthier mitochondria, better basal layer for your skin. Your skin will improve. This stacks really well with C60. So to have youthful gene expression, more energy, soaking up free radicals, and slow down the aging process, take resveratrol. But there's synergistic benefits by taking the resveratrol and taking the C60. Digestive enzyme complex. This will help to break up carbohydrates, proteins, and lipids to allow you to reduce the load on your pancreas so you can have your pancreas rest. You'll be able to digest your foods better. Once you hit about age 40, your pancreas doesn't work as well, even if you're healthy. So it's important to take digestive enzyme complex. Digestive enzyme complex also has bromelain that helps to break up clots. That's really important, especially if you don't want problems with clotting, microclotting, that causes early onset of dementia. All right. So please pay attention to me. I'm the most accurate on this subject matter. Get the digestive enzyme complex. And because it had bromelain in it, that was the reason why I told you to take digestive enzyme complex during the crisis in 2020. Oh, because it has the proteolytic enzymes to also break up glycoproteins. Isn't that what the spike's made out of? Yeah. Amazing how that works. Zeolite. Zeolite will bind to heavy metals, toxins, and chemicals and allow you to urinate them out within 6 to 8 hours. That way, you are improving your immune system and your endocrine system. You're going to be healthier. Your tissues will perform better. Now, you can do a detoxification 2 ways. A daily one, like a daily maintenance detoxification, or you can have a larger pulse of detoxification. You only do that once or twice a year. If you want to do the daily version, take 3 small drops underneath your tongue and drink filtered water. Do that every day. This is the type of zeolite that you can take every day, and it will help you to improve your body. Now, for the ones that want to do the heavier detox, you can take about 5 small drops. Some people even do 10 small drops underneath your tongue, drink filtered water, and do that every day until the bottle's done, and do that once or twice a year. It's up to you, but I recommend the 3 drops underneath the tongue every day. Drink the filtered water. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Make sure you use discount 5 and you get $5 off. All right, let's listen to algebra.
Mediators, in order to salvage the talks, they could make progress, and in the end, the situation ended in a positive vibe and manner, and they could end up with a roadmap for a 60-day negotiations of the nuclear issue, as well as they tried to find some resolutions or ways in order to address the existing challenges and concerns in relation to what has been happening in Lebanon and to end the war there, as well as also to make sure that the transit in the Strait of Hormuz will be somehow coordinated in a manner that there could be somehow normal transit in the course of time. The technical team is in Switzerland, and the high-level political delegations are back to capitals. So now we are in a situation whereby the atmosphere looks like that they have been making progress, and now they are hopeful for another round of talks in order to continue the discussions. As we speak, we also recently heard that the U.S. Treasury Department, they issued a general license allowing Iran to be able to sell its oil. This is also of paramount significance for Tehran, and this can have also, let's say, an impact on the macroeconomic stabilization in the country. And from, let's say, comparing to maybe more than 24 hours ago, the situation, the atmosphere, the feeling is now more positive.
Obviously, hoping to lift some of the economic pressures that Iran has been under. We also heard J.D. Vance say that nuclear inspectors will be allowed into Iran. Has that been confirmed from the Iranians? And obviously, the US has been touting this is a big win for them. Do we know what level of access they could be given?
Well, there have been discussions in relation to part of that money, which is supposed to be in relation to the humanitarian commodities and goods. But there was no, let's say, limitation to be somehow used for American products. And this is something which has been announced by American officials. There is no confirmation from the Iranian side. Maybe the aim at the American side is to somehow convey a message that, this money is going to be used in a strict manner and also bringing benefit for American people. There are, speculations regarding U.S. Vice President that he might be having an eye on the upcoming presidential election in the United States. Whether this is for domestic consumption or not, that's a question, but at least we do not have any confirmation on just buying American products. But the point is that the process for Iran to be able to have access to part of its frozen money is now has begun.
Okay, thank you so much for all of that. That is Abbas Aslani for us out of Tehran. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced he is resigning after less than 2 years in office. He's been under pressure to quit after the Labour Party suffered defeats in recent local elections. He'll remain caretaker Prime Minister until a new Labour leader is chosen in the coming weeks.
Every decision I've taken has been about putting the country I love first. That is why I will resign as leader of the Labour Party. I have spoken to His Majesty the King this morning to inform him of my decision. I will ask the National Executive Committee of the Labour Party to set out a timetable with nominations opening on the 9th of July and completed by the summer recess. In the case of a contest, this will ensure a new leader is in place before Parliament returns in September.
We have correspondents at both Westminster and at Downing Street, where we begin with Al Jazeera's Charlie Angela.
We're going to pivot over. I want to pivot over to Bloomberg. I think they're talking about Alan Greenspan.
His legacy.
Well, I didn't work with him directly, but I certainly heard a lot about him and his style of managing the Federal Open Market Committee when I was there at the Fed. Certainly a great chair, 18 and a half years. I would say for 15 of those 18 and a half years, he presided over the Great Moderation, and his overall approach to policy was very successful. As so often happens, sometimes long periods of success sow the seeds of trouble. That's the insight that Hyman Minsky had, and I agree with it. And I think in the last 3 years of Alan Greenspan's tenure, he may have not seen the signs of the coming real estate crisis and perhaps relied too heavily on his basic belief in the market system and his light touch in terms of regulation.
Ira Jersey, our chief interest rate strategist, was just saying that Greenspan understood the markets in a way that more recent Federal Reserve chairs haven't. Do you think that played a role in his perhaps his tenure, especially in the last 3 years, laying the groundwork for some of the things that happened starting in 2007?
Yes, I do. And he not only understood the markets, I think he understood the economy at a detailed level. When I was there, as part of his legend was that he could recite very arcane data from particular sectors, a trucking sector or the housing sector. He knew quite literally hundreds of data streams or data series intimately and really understood the economy. So I think that can sometimes breed confidence as things are turning, and in a way, that's what happened.
Dennis, we now have a new chairman of the Federal Reserve, Kevin Warsh, and the market heard from Mr. Warsh for the first time last week with this statement and with the press conference. What was your takeaway?
I thought he made a strong start to his incumbency in the chair's job. I went into the meeting thinking he might have to choose between being a change agent or being a kind of institutionalist who respected the collaboration and the collegiality of the Fed. He managed to I think serve both of those masters in his first meeting. He was forceful and reaffirming the commitment to bringing inflation down. He launched his 5 task forces. I thought it got to be almost humorous when he said, we have a task force for that in the press conference. But he showed that he is going to try to reform and improve things about the way the institution works, but do it in a collaborative way. And I thought that was impressive how he was able to pull that balancing act off.
Yeah, in some circles, people were saying that there's a task force for that was kind of a drinking game, or could be a drinking game, albeit at 2:30 in the afternoon. When it comes to the hawkish hold that we got on Wednesday, there were a lot of questions heading into that Fed meeting, Dennis, about whether Kevin Warsh spoke for the committee. He definitely spoke for the committee. Did he speak for himself, you think, in being that hawkish?
Well, one of the things I was watching for as we went into the press conference was whether he would be clear when he was speaking for the committee and clear when he was speaking for himself. And there was only one or two incidents where he had to make that point clearly, and I think he did it. I think that maybe we have to read between the lines. His choice of not submitting a forecast and a dot was speaking for himself. At the same time, he characterized the way the committee came out as reflected in the SEP. It turned out in this press conference, the SEP is the only thing we really had that gives you a sense of the mind of the committee looking forward. And that, to me, was very clearly hawkish.
Dennis, we have oil continuing to come down, and a lot of folks would say, all right, inflation problems fixing itself. Others saying, whoa, we've got more. It's more than energy out there in terms of inflationary pressures. How do you think the Fed should look at inflation these days?
Well, certainly the Fed should look at inflation broadly using an approach that's more like a wide array of inflation data as opposed to focusing on a single data point like PCE core, PCE headline. My own view is that we should be cautious about assuming that oil prices snap back to the pre-war levels. I think there are a lot of reasons to just be concerned and worried that the price pressures will persist, and conceivably the improvement we've seen in the last few days, depending on how the negotiations go, could reverse. So, I'm being very cautious about predicting that oil prices are going to come down and the world is going to revert to pre-war conditions.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. Dennis, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate your thoughts here on the late Alan Greenspan passing away at the age of 100. Dennis Lockhart is the former Atlanta Fed president, joining us from Atlanta. Paul, it is Monday, and we have about $27 billion worth of deals announced today. And we're going to dig into one of them, which is AbbVie buying Apogee Therapeutics for $7.1 billion in cash.
Sam Fazoli, Bloomberg Intelligence, covers all that healthcare stuff. We'll join us. That's coming up.
We have got to the point where literally anybody builds a fully working app without knowing how to code. This is base 44. This is the first look at it.
We want a regional ceasefire, right? We want Hezbollah to stop firing at our friends in Israel. We want Israelis to be able to live in peace. We've been, I think, very good at setting up what we're calling a deconfliction mechanism. But what it really is to say that when things happen, the sides are actually talking to one another.
Vice President J.D. Vance says Iran has agreed to let weapons inspectors into that country. But the major concession that Barack Ravi just told Kate that the U.S. made along the way.
The vice president was asked if Netanyahu had been kind of looped into all of this. And he said, yes, we've been talking to the Israelis and keeping them in the loop, as well as the Qataris and Emiratis. Like he says, everyone is being kept looped in because this is about the region. This is not a U.S. imposed deal, is what he says. But also Netanyahu just saying, I think it was just yesterday, that saying that Israel is going to stay in Lebanon for as long as it takes to protect Israelis. And Vance is clearly trying to downplay how serious these last kind of round of strikes and flare-ups have become in terms of threatening this overall deal. How central are you hearing Lebanon, this fight between an Iran proxy, Hezbollah, and Israel has now become to the fate of the actual U.S. deal with Iran that will stick?
No, I think it has become a major hurdle for the deal. This was, in my opinion, one of the biggest mistakes in the negotiations to wrap those two issues together. It was an Iranian demand in order for Iran to have a say in what's going on in another sovereign country that is not Iran. This is Lebanon. And they wanted to have a say in order to make sure that their proxy, the terrorist organization Hezbollah, will survive. And they got it. And what they got yesterday is even more significant. At the end of the war in Lebanon in November 2024, the Biden administration negotiated a deal between Israel and the government of Lebanon that set a mechanism. This mechanism was the US, Israel, Lebanon, France, and the UN. And it was supposed to do deconfliction. Now, the Trump administration has created a new mechanism, but this time with the US, Iran, Lebanon, Pakistan, and Qatar. Israel is not part of this mechanism at all. And so I think that when Benjamin Netanyahu read this statement that came out last night from Switzerland, I think, basically it blew his mind because this is a catastrophe for him and his government.
Barak, J.D. Vance saying that Iran has agreed to allow UN nuclear inspectors back in. Talk to me about what this means, how much of a win this is.
Well, first, this is part of a, let's call it, that's my description, a mini deal between Iran and the US that I think was both sides have been working on for several days now ahead of this first round of talks. What is this mini deal? The Iranians will agree to invite the IAEA inspectors back to the country, and the US will start taking steps to release frozen assets, Iranian frozen assets in Qatar. What happened during this round of talks? The Iranians said, we will invite them. Iran and Qatar signed some kind of document that approves a mechanism for use of those funds, those $6 billion in Qatar. This money hasn't been released yet, and I think it will be released once the Iranians actually allow those inspectors back in the country. So this is the whole, let's say, mini deal that was agreed on during this round of talks. And it's meaningful because IAEA inspectors did not visit the key nuclear facilities in Iran, the facilities that were attacked during the June 2025 war. They haven't visited there since then, more than a year now. So if they will, it will be a meaningful step.
So as everyone's keeping track of Barak's great reporting always, they were working, the MOU is a framework to get to a deal, a path to get to a path to a deal. And now we're talking about a mini deal, which will now continue with technical negotiations to get to, we're continuing to follow this as Barak brings it to us at every step of the way. Colonel, one aspect that it's becoming more and more central, it seems very clearly in the last few days, is Lebanon. And Vice President Vance described in some detail how he says they have now set up a deconfliction mechanism to prevent flare-ups between Hezbollah and Israel, flare-ups and incidents from spiraling and escalating kind of out of control. How could this or would this work? What do you hear in this kind of announcement?
It's hard for us to imagine a life with dirty water.
Kate, one of the things that you hear is that this is basically going back to what was supposed to have happened in Lebanon multiple times. The UN had peacekeeping troops in Lebanon that were designed to basically deconflict between the Israelis and Hezbollah and of course any other Lebanese elements that could possibly have been threatening to Israel. So in essence, we're going back to that kind of a state of affairs, possibly without direct UN involvement. It's not clear yet whether that the UN will be involved or not, but right now they're not involved. So what I hear is a mechanism whereby the Israelis and the Lebanese will be talking to each other. Okay, that's good. The problem is how much is Hezbollah involved in all of this? And the thing that we have to remember is that neither Israel nor Hezbollah nor the Lebanese are part of these negotiations. So this is a deal that is made by other people that hopefully will be followed, because it does have an impact on the greater Iran deal that the U.S. and Iran are working on. But it is a positive step as far as it goes. But the problem is it does not include the people that are actually going to be either doing the shooting or the deconflicting.
With us now, CNN national security analysts Alex Plitzis and Beth Sander. And Alex, I want to start with you. If I'm not mistaken, there were weapons inspectors inside Iran as recently as a year or so ago. What's the significance of Iran now saying they can come back in immediately? This was mentioned in the Memorandum of Understanding.
So it's part of the overall, I guess, implementation of the MOU as well, but we still haven't gotten the technical level details. So the inspectors coming back is good, obviously, because since the strikes, there hasn't really been anybody in place to see what the condition is on the ground. So having them come back is an important step. But overall, again, this is really just the high-level implementation portion without actually getting into the technical details of how we're going to solve some of the thorniest issues.
Beth, what have we seen so far in terms of leverage, and who seems to have more of it in these talks?
Well, I think that it was very interesting that President Trump came in with this threat of almost a threat to assassinate the group who was negotiating, saying that they may not make it back to their country if they didn't stop Hezbollah in Lebanon from initiating actions. And I think that this is so important in terms of this leverage, right? But then Vance had to walk it back. When you have leverage like that and you try to use it, but no one believes that you will actually follow through with it, then you don't really have leverage, right? So I think that, when you look at what leverage we have, it's mainly about economics, right? It's really about the dangling of the carrot, because the stick is almost completely irrelevant right now and not believable. And I want to make one additional point on this idea of inspectors. We can't forget that Iran is actually treaty obligated to have IAEA inspectors in Iran. So what we're asking them to do is literally, yes, fulfill the MOU, but that's nothing to do with the fact that they already are under that treaty obligation. So again, we're kind of getting concessions for things that they're supposed to already be doing.
Or are we getting concessions at all, Alex? Are we seeing Iran give
this whole peace agreement with Iran is making us look weak. But Trump is going to get up on stage and say, how he's a peacemaker and he was able to solve the problem. No, he didn't solve the problem. He's kicking the can down the road for something much worse. Now, what I'm concerned about, and I've been saying this for 2 years, Rosh Hashanah is going to coincide with the Sabbath this year. It's going to happen on 9/11/2026. That's bad, because you can't blow the shofar during that coinciding with the Sabbath. That means that you can't silence Satan. Satan. Can't silence him. Bad things happen with that. But in rare cases, that coinciding with the Sabbath for Rosh Hashanah, in rare cases, there's a consecutive year over year. So there's two that happen. And it's going to happen this year and next year. That means a curse comes down on a group of people, a person, the whole world, depends on the situation, during this period of time. So 2026, all the way into 2027, October, and then again from October 2027 into roughly October of 2028, is going to be really bad for the world. Now, really pay attention to this. Look at the mosaic. Look at what's happening in Iran. It is not out of the realm of possibility that some sort of nuclear device or some sort of weapon of mass destruction is used within the next 24 months. Or some sort of flare-up with Asia between China and Taiwan. Something bad's coming. And we're priming the pump for it because of bad leadership. I wouldn't be surprised that some sort of tumultuous activity in the financial markets happen. Now think about this. 2028, 2029, that's only 100 years from 2000. That's only 100 years from 1929. What happened before 1929? The Spanish flu of 1918. Very close to the problems that started at the late of 2019. History is echoing. Spanish flu of 1918 is very similar in terms of the dynamics of a pandemic of 2019 and 2020. In the dynamics of 1929, it's echoing. Is that going to happen in 2028 or 2029 or 2030? We are going through a period of time that's dangerous. Now, what also echoed from the Spanish flu into the Great Depression? What happened after that? World War II. People need to pay attention to what's happening.
Not more than willing to give so far in these talks.
So far there hasn't been anything of substance. To Beth's point, they were granted the oil waivers. Things are starting to flow there, but we haven't seen any movement in terms of the technical details. The main issues the president wanted, which is particularly along the nuclear file. Again, from what we're hearing that came out of day one of the talks, this was really what I would call the next level below the MOU. If the MOU was, hey, we've agreed to talk about these topics, what was set forth is a framework over 60 days for how they would get those done in a very tight timeline that would, quite frankly, be unprecedented. And then some deconfliction mechanisms for potential regional hotspots for conflict. But other than that, Iran hasn't agreed, it looks at this point, to major concessions of any kind.
On the one hand, talking is talking, which is good. I mean, you would rather have every side talking than not talking. There is another side of this, though, Beth, which is that the Iranians, they're good at talking. And the longer the talking goes on, it seems it benefits them.
Exactly.
So when they go,
the Iranians are just buying time, and Trump is too stupid, allowing it to happen because he's afraid. He chickens out all the time. When he was having problems with his bankruptcies of certain companies or certain development wasn't happening very well, wasn't developing the way it should be, and they were having creditor issues, he didn't take charge of the situation. He sent his underlings to take charge of it because he was embarrassed, or he was too. He always kicks if something looks bad and something is happening that's not going in his way. He'll delegate it to someone so he can blame it on them. This is what's happening on J.D. Vance. He did this even to Ivanka Trump when he was having issues with one of his developments or properties or companies that were having issues with paying at the time. I don't know the full details of it. This is way back. I mean, we're talking maybe 20 years ago. But the thing is that he does this. This is his modus operandi. He doesn't take charge of something. He'll take credit, indulge on how great something is. But when things are not working, he'll find ways to blame someone. Trump is not a real leader. And I support Trump, unfortunately. The problem that we have in the United States is we get poor choices. Kamala Harris or Joe Biden, depending on during, which time that they were running, or Trump. Now, obviously, Trump would have been the better choice, not Kamala Harris. But the thing is Trump isn't a good choice.
Back to Iran. How do you think they'll explain it to the higher ups there, and how will it be received?
Well, they've already put out some statements that, as Vice President Vance indicated, are slightly divergent from the U.S. understanding. For example, on the frozen assets, where the foreign minister of Iran has put out that there was this movement on the frozen assets, and the central bank governor of Iran said that they signed agreements about getting the frozen assets underway and transferred. So they are saying that this is all positive, that they're getting things, specifically the money, and they want the money. So there is some leverage there, but again, time is something that is probably more on Iran's side than our side, as we're really trying to get the Strait open. And as Alex said, this is all about getting the Strait open and then getting that money moving. So, and the mechanics for doing that. The Lebanon part we haven't talked about, but having this kind of board or group overseeing deconfliction is very important, because that is the thing that could spoil this quickly.
It can, it has in the past, and every day it's a huge risk to all sides there. Alex Plissus, Beth Sanner, great to see both of you. Thank you.
Please go to my store.
To get a U.S. green card.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the structural nano silver gel. You can get it in the tube form or the quick dispenser form called Renew. Either one, you use the same way. It's dual purpose. You can put it on a cut, an abrasion, or a minor burn. It'll help you to heal it quicker, about a third of the time quicker. Structural nano silver gel can be used daily as a skincare. And structural nano silver gel will help to reduce allergies by just lightly coating your nostrils during the allergy season when you're outside. It'll help to neutralize the allergen. In addition, you can use the gel if someone around you, or if you are sick because of the cold, the common cold. Put it on your hands, around your mouth, around your eyes, around your ears, lightly coat your nostrils, and it'll stay active for 5.5 hours, and it will neutralize. So please go to my store, get the structural nano silver gel. Does wonders. Make sure you have some at home or at work. Never know when you need it. Structural nano silver toothpaste. Whitens your teeth, freshens your breath, reduces inflammation at the gum line, helps the health of the gum line. It'll neutralize, because it's structural nano silver, has no fluoride. Use it every day, and with good oral hygiene, you are also improving your cardiovascular health and your valvular health. A lot of people don't realize that poor oral hygiene can cause problems with cardiovascular issues and valvular issues. Barley. You can get the barley either in heirloom version or the gladiator version. Now, heirloom barley will detoxify your body, soak up free radicals, bring down inflammation. That's going to help your endocrine system in your immune system, help with your joint health, help with brain function, help with cardiovascular health. Keeping down inflammation and soaking up free radicals will slow down the aging process and help your different organs. Now, if you also want to build muscle, take the gladiator barley. Now, gladiator barley will do everything that the heirloom barley will do. But if you do some resistance training and take the gladiator barley, you're going to build muscle quicker. This stacks really well with Myotrol. And again, Myotrol helps with the gene expression to build muscle. So please go to my store, get the gladiator barley or the heirloom barley. It's a great way to detoxify your body, but not just to detoxify. It's going to bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, and you're going to slow down the aging process, and your organ systems are going to perform better. So please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. The link is in the description of this video. Make sure you use discount 5 and you save some money. And get healthy. If you pay attention and take the supplements that I take every day, you're going to slow down the aging process. It works, it's very comprehensive, and it's affordable. It's not Brian Johnson with his $2 million a year to try to slow down aging and it doesn't work. Just pay attention to me. Go to my store, get my supplements, take it every day. It will work. Let's listen to Al Jazeera.
The situation is that this is a deal that was available to the United States on February 26th, 2 days before the U.S. decided to go to war against Iran with Israel. And the deal that was on the table in Geneva at that time had even a lot of these details already negotiated. And so we have to go through this massive tragedy at a huge cost to the global economy. So many lives.
No. This guy is supporting Islamic terrorism. All right. Yeah. During that time period, it was also very evident to us, the United States, that Iran wasn't willing to negotiate in good faith. So stop saying it's the same agreement, Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Doesn't matter. They weren't willing to sign it. So stop the sugarcoating of the situation. Now, I still hold that Trump failed. He should have killed the IRGC. He should have killed the theocratic regime. He should have leveled Tehran with dumb bombs, gravity dumb bombs, totally leveled it, just like how Israel leveled Gaza. And we should have taken the oil and the natural gas and used ground troops to secure the Strait of Hormuz. Would we have had casualties? Yes. But guess what? The whole region would be totally different. And once what Trump said that he was going to take the oil, what happened? Within less than 12 hours, UAE rushed a dignitary group to Iran to try to negotiate a settlement. Why? Because the UAE knows that if the United States puts ground troops in that region and takes control of the oil, it's going to totally change the dynamics of that region. And the UAE doesn't want that because they want to continue to sell natural gas and oil. Trump failed. Trump had a perfect opportunity to take control of the situation and failed. Failed.
Where we were before, but you're right. I think there is the beginning of an outline of what a deal could eventually look like, which is the same formula that was applied in the JCPOA, an Iranian nuclear program that is severely restricted and put under rigorous international monitoring in return for economic incentives. That core of the bargain has not changed.
Mr. Park, what does a group like yours say about these negotiations? You have one nuclear armed power, which is the United States, trying to ensure, or at least that's what they say publicly, that another non-nuclear armed power, Iran, never acquires a nuclear bomb. How do you look at this negotiation?
Well, as I said, we welcome any deal that puts diplomacy back at the centre and stops all of the killing. But I mean, of course, Iran does have nuclear weapons, as assessed repeatedly by US intelligence agencies and international inspectors, and as consistent with its more than 50-year membership of the...
Why do you need 65% or higher enrichment of uranium? There is zero reason to have that unless you're going to make a bomb. So stop playing games here. This is the reason why this is so dangerous. And the problem with Trump is that because he's negotiating with the theocratic regime in the IRGC, they could develop other weapons of mass destruction, including biologics, that have low barriers of entry that we can't monitor. You can design something in a laboratory in 1,000 or 2,000 square foot facility under cover where your enemies don't know. And you literally can design something in the laboratory that can kill half of the population of the world. That is not sci-fi. That is what modern biotechnology can do. And if you're crazy enough, you'll do it. Trump's too stupid because he hasn't taken any science classes. All he understands is how to dodge taxes.
Treaty, which legally commits it to never acquiring nuclear weapons. But it's incredible hypocrisy coming from the US and Israel on this issue, because we've seen the US as the country that first developed and nuclear weapons and used them against civilian populations, and Israel as the only country in the Middle East that does have nuclear weapons, that has never joined the NPT, never subjected itself to international inspections or IAEA safeguards, and which is also at the same time aggressively attacking.
I agree with her on this point. And I'll give you my opinion on the Israelis with nuclear weapons. They shouldn't have them. The United States should say, Iran, you should not have your nuclear material at that level of enrichment. And we want it. And Israel, cough up your nuclear weapons. You're not going to have them because you can't be trusted.
Countries in the region and committing genocide in Palestine. So if the countries that are concerned about nuclear weapons proliferation in the Middle East, there might be more use for them to concentrate their attentions on the arsenal that does exist, not the one that doesn't.
Ali, what will you be looking at, right? What news items or what details will you be looking at as far as the nuclear negotiation is concerned going forward to see where it's headed?
So the most interesting thing I think will be to see if the IAEA has already started talking to the Iranians about developing a set of protocols for accessing the bomb nuclear sites. In its history, it has been a rare thing for the IAEA to get access to safeguarded nuclear facilities that were bombed. There might be some serious nuclear safety security issues at these sites. The agency is fully capable of handling it, but it has to negotiate all of these details with the Iranians. I don't think that's what U.S. or mediating parties can do on behalf of the agency. We don't know how much of these discussions have already happened or not, so that will be interesting to watch. And then the second thing I would have an eye out for is already the Treasury Department has issued waivers, and so it appears that both sides are trying to deliver on their commitments on the MOU. But if they are to make quick progress in the 60-day window, they would almost have to have continuous negotiation. We know the technical experts have stayed behind, but if there are no additional high-level serious discussions in the coming days or weeks, then I would start getting worried that momentum is starting to get lost.
Ali Bai is joining us from Geneva. You're the director of the Iran project at the International Crisis Group. Thank you very much. Melissa Park, thanks to you as well, executive director of the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. Thanks to both of you. Bringing in now Joseph Donner, also in Switzerland. Joseph.
Before we go back, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the Boomer Boost. Boomer Boost has 68 nutrients. It's a great way to slow down the aging process. This has the minerals, the vitamins, and other compounds to be able to boost up your immune system, improve your endocrine system, bring down inflammation, soak up free radicals, help with your cardiovascular health, help with brain function, help with musculature, rev up your metabolism, increase your energy levels, help with the health of your mitochondria. You get lots of benefits by taking this. And if you stack this with the other supplements that I have, they're going to work synergistically to slow down the aging process. So take this every day. It's a month's supply. And you can stack this with the heirloom barley or the gladiator barley to help to control your A1C levels so you can control diabetes. I also have Cleanse, Max 35 and Max 14 that will help to improve your innate immune system. Take a teaspoon a day every day, swish it in your mouth, gargle about 20 seconds or 30 seconds, and then swallow it. This will help to neutralize and improve your oral cavity and your oral pharynx, maintain your mucosal barrier, and maintain the epithelial lining of your oral pharynx. That's super important. And by doing this every day, you are reducing the chances of catching something. And when you do that, and you're boosting up your innate immune system, you're reducing the probability of having to heal after some sort of infection. If you notice, people that get sick regularly, chronically, they age faster. Ones that don't age as fast. And the whole idea is to neutralize. So this is one of the pillars. You can stack it with the Boomer Boost. Please go to my store, studio-reykjavik.com.
The new Vision Cloud explores your lawn with AI-powered stereo vision, avoids obstacles,
contains the fact that Lebanon's future is once again being decided by regional and international powers. What do you say to those people?
Indeed, once again, the fate of South Lebanon is decided both in regional and international negotiation this time between the EU and the US, but this is also a result of the inability of the Lebanese state to fully accomplish its sovereignty. Obviously, many challenges existed, but we can speak about Hezbollah's weaponry, etc., but also the constant violation on the Lebanese state sovereignty. But the main responsibility resides among the Lebanese ruling class that have not been able to build the capacities of a state to fulfill, the ambitions of its population, whether it comes to its security, to socio-economic rights of the Lebanese population. If we go back to the first days of the latest war of Israel against Lebanon, the Lebanese army was withdrawn from the south and was not able to guarantee the security of the southern Lebanese population. So indeed, you have to say that once again, the Lebanese state is discussed outside of Lebanon, but also we have to point out of the inability of the Lebanese state to fulfill the demands of the Lebanese people, not only in terms of security, but democratic demands, socio-economic demands, and the ability to provide an alternative to Hezbollah's resistance in the south.
Joseph Daher, expert on the political economy of the Middle East, joining us from Geneva this hour. Thank you very much, Joseph, for being with us again. And with that, I turn to Al Jazeera's diplomatic editor, James Fays, who has been taking in all these developments since the very beginning, since even the principals arrived in town. And now the principals have left or are leaving, and they're handing over the diplomacy, which continues, to their technical teams. What does that mean? What should our viewers understand about that?
Well, a lot of detail is going to have to be worked on this, and your guest Andy Byers, I agree with him, 60 days to do this. They've got to work around the clock almost to get it done in that very short period of time. We understand the technical teams are nuclear. They're not going to be working, at least today, because the Iranians said they haven't got their nuclear experts here. But then there'll be teams on the thing that Iran wants, which is lifting the sanctions, monitoring and dispute resolution. They want to make sure this time that if there's any problem, they nip it in the bud and it doesn't destroy the whole of this process that now has been set up. But it's a difficult task. Couple of things which are wins for both sides today, but it gets harder. They almost certainly left the more difficult stuff towards the end. And remember, this is eventually going to, may not be a treaty, but it's going to be a treaty-like language and go into a UN Security Council resolution. So you're going to have diplomats up there, scientists, because we're dealing with nuclear physics, and lawyers to make sure that the language of all of this is completely watertight.
James, before I hand back to Doha, very big picture view from you. Everything that's happening here is about ending the war that the United States launched against Iran on February 28th of this year. A war that has killed more than 7,000 people across multiple countries in the Middle East. Have we got closer to that?
We've got closer. We've got a mechanism now, and we've had a meeting that has continued and ended with everyone saying it went well. So you've got a bit of momentum there. They say they've got a process now for any problem. I still believe the problem, and there are two wars linked, which is why they're trying to deal with two wars at the same time. The problem still could be Lebanon. That could be the actions of Hezbollah, but notably of Israel, its bombardment of southern Lebanon, its continuing occupation of southern Lebanon, still could be a problem going forward. I think I'll end on an optimistic note and say both sides, I mean, particularly in Iran, where so many lives were lost, both sides actually do not want to go back to war. So that, I think, is worth remembering.
Al Jazeera diplomatic editor James Bays, thank you very much. And Foley, just before I hand it back to you, I'll give you one last look at this venue where diplomacy is happening. It has been the principals, the U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and the Iranian Speaker of Parliament Mohammad Bagher Ghalibaf. They met for hours and hours and hours, 18 hours, we're told. And then sometime after midnight, they came to an agreement. The mediators made that public. It all happened there on the Swiss mountaintop resort of Bergenstock. But the diplomacy is not over. As James was explaining, the technical work, the technical talks on nuclear, on lifting sanctions, and several other subjects, several other matters that are important to both Iran and the United States, all of that continues here in Bergenstock throughout the week. Foley?
Thank you, Cyril. An intense few days in Bergenstock, no doubt, and thank you very much for your exceptional coverage of the negotiations there. Let's now unpack everything that was discussed in Switzerland with our other correspondents around the world. We are live this hour in the Strait of Hormuz, entire southern Lebanon, Ramallah in the occupied West Bank, and the White House in Washington, D.C. But first, we'll begin in the Strait of Hormuz. Tawhid Asadi is there for us. So, Tawhid, they announced it.
Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. Get the C60. You can get it in MCT coconut oil, extra virgin olive oil, and avocado oil. Take a teaspoon a day every day. This is 1,000 times stronger than vitamin C. It's a very potent antioxidant. Take a teaspoon a day every day, preferably on an empty stomach in the morning. And what you'll notice is that you're slowing down the aging process. You're going to have you'll have a clearer cognition. You'll be able to focus better. In addition, this is going to help your immune system and your endocrine system, help with brain function, help with your cardiovascular level, soak up free radicals at the cellular level and bring down inflammation at the cellular level. And when that happens, you're going to have more energy. Your mitochondria will be healthier. At the vascular level, by soaking up the free radicals, you're reducing plaque formation. At the brain level, you're going to be able to improve the positive neuroplasticity because you're keeping the inflammation down and soaking up those free radicals. Your neurons will have healthier mitochondria, more energy, more neurotransmitters will be created, better connections. You're going to be thinking faster, have better memory. It's really important to take. And it also helps the base layer of your skin. Stack it with the resveratrol to help with that skin health. Take it every day, teaspoon a day. I've been doing this for over 10 years, and it's a major component of my anti-aging protocol. That protocol is very simple. The probiotics, the Max 35 or Cleanse or Max 14, C60, turmeric, ashwagandha, and lignans, and the Buno Boost. Take that every day. Apply a holistic approach of exercise, balancing, stretching exercises, learning new things, drinking filtered water, staying away from processed foods, talking to people, having a positive mindset, having some sort of spirituality or meditative regime. And you will notice that you're going to slow down the aging process. Proper supplementation and proper lifestyle is the secret ingredient to slowing down the aging process. And to have more vitality and longevity, please go to my store, get the C60. All right, looks like Microsoft and Chevron are doing an agreement, a 20-year agreement.
Okay, so it sounds like it's getting some value out of something that would be disposed of anyway. That sounds great. Does that mean that there's no risk, no concern about locals, to the extent that there are any locals living near the Permian Basin or any nearby communities facing higher utility bills?
No, so Chevron say this is 100% behind the meter. So there is no utility even connected with this project. So this is purely Chevron building taking their gas, building the power station, and then using that power for the data center. I mean, it's a very remote, sparsely populated area anyway, but they insist that there's absolutely no impact on the local ratepayers at all, which I think makes this, which they claim anyway, makes this project unique. It's rare for a data center of this scale to not utilize grids power,
right,
or have the involvement of a utility.
If that's the case, how come we didn't get something like this sooner? Why did it take so long?
These are big projects. They cost a lot of money, and it's new. I mean, Chevron is not a utility, is not a power producer. But the other thing I think is so far big tech companies have preferred to build data centers near to larger population centers. And the other thing is as well is early on, these companies did prefer to use renewables and to lower the emissions of those data centers. But now there does seem to be a movement towards natural gas, given the scale that we now see ahead of us.
Ken, you got 30 seconds left. Tell us why this is a new business for Chevron.
Chevron's in the oil and gas business. They're not in the power business really until now, but they think this can diversify their revenue streams, provides a bit more of a reliability. It's not it won't be as cyclical as the oil and gas business, but it also takes advantage of some of their key competitive advantages. Chevron's already in the Permian. They know how to build big projects, and they have the gas. So they think it's within their skill sets. Unlike some other companies like BP and Shell, which got into sort of power about 5 or 6 years ago, unsuccessfully.
All right, very good. Kevin Crown, big oil reporter for Bloomberg News, based in Houston. The Chevron stock up about 0.3% today, 14% year to date.
All right, please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com, and get the collagen. Collagen will help to remodel your joints. They'll help to remodel the cartilage and the cushioning of the joint. Reduce pain by blocking NAV 1.7. Reduce joint erosion by blocking MMP3 and MMP13. And reducing inflammation by blocking EP4. So please, go to my store, get the collagen. This will help to remodel your joints and do those exercises that I've been mentioning on these videos, and stack it with the collagen that I have. And the collagen will work together with the collagen to help to remodel that joint. Now, for temporary relief, if you have pain, use this topical. You rub it in the area where you have the pain. This super strong relief will help with tension headaches, muscle aches, sprains, bruising, pain. It will also help with arthritic pain. So please go to my store, get the super strong relief. It works very fast within about 90 seconds. Please go to my store, the-studio-reykjavik.com. That's the end of my broadcast. Thank you for listening. Please help support the work that I do. All these videos are for free. Go to my website and get the great products that I offer. I also have course material on immunology and pulmonology that you can sign up for. You can watch tons of videos at your leisure, download PDFs. It's very cheap. It's about $25 for each module. I have 2 modules, one for pulmonology, one for immunology. And you get tons of PDFs, tons of videos. You get a free, you get a unique password that you log in, and you can log in as many times as you want. It's very simple. All right, so please go to my store, learn something about pulmonology and immunology, get the great products that I offer that help slow down the aging process and get healthy, and support the work that I do. All these videos for free. So please be a paid member to my Patreon channel and my Substack channel to help support the free work and the free content that I produce for everybody. Thank you for listening and have a nice day.